value of an individual, sometimes you look at what they are willing to sacrifice. That are they willing to sacrifice from themselves? Are they willing to sacrifice for their families? Are they willing to sacrifice for their communities? Are they willing to sacrifice for humanity? You know, a general principle it goes, the closer someone is to you, the greater haqq and right they have over you. That your neighbors around you, they have a haqq. Your family, your parents have a greater right. Even when it comes towards the world, you find when it comes to all human beings, our responsibility towards all of humanity is insaf and justice towards them. At the second level, when it comes towards the circle of the Muslims, one step higher, you find those hadith they state, our responsibility is infaq and generosity towards them. That you treat them well. You treat them with generosity. But you find when it comes to the next stage, the stage of those who hold the wilayah of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, you find the traditions they state that the responsibility towards that group is ithar and self-sacrifice. That means whether you have or you don't have, you make sure that those who hold the wilayah of Ali Muhammad, they have it. That you look towards these individuals. Amir al-Mu'mineen would say, Ghayatul Makarim al-Itar. He says the peak of perfection is the self-sacrifice in an individual. That's why when you look and you look at the levels of sacrifice, you find that the Anbiya and the Awsiya and the A'imma, they displayed the highest level of sacrifice, and at the same time they faced the most trials and tribulations within their life. That when we look within the Quran, for example, and you look at Habil and Qabil, isn't this the example of a sacrifice within the Quran? That the incident it states that Adam, he appointed Habil as his successor. At that point Qabil opposes Habil. So Adam says, why don't both of you sacrifice towards Allah? And whoever sacrifice Allah accepts, you know he is the wali. That you find one of the signs of being the wali of Allah is that Allah accepts their sacrifice. So you find that Habil was what? He was a farmer. And Qabil would have what? He would raise plants. Habil, he gives one of his best sheep, whereas Qabil gives a piece of dry wheat. At that moment, that sacrifice which was better was accepted in the eyes of Allah. You look through the Quran at other examples. You find the sacrifices of Nuh are mentioned within the Quran. The sacrifices of Yahya and Zakaria and Isa and all of these Anbiya. But you find if there is an individual who has been considered as a paradigm for sacrifice, as an exemplar of sacrifice within the Holy Quran and even within Christian circles, you find that it's Ibrahim. That the Quran, it calls Ibrahim an ummah and a nation. Why? Because he stands up for Tawheed, and you find that Ibrahim, he sacrifices within his life. But you find not all sacrifices were equal, because the Quran, it mentions one sacrifice that reigns over all other sacrifices, and that is that sacrifice where the Quran, it says, وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْهٍ عَدِيمٍ, that we ransomed him with what? With that supreme sacrifice. You know, the topic upon this final majlis in this series, of course there's two majalis after Ashura, but you find upon this night leading up to Ashura, the final topic which I've examined and decided upon is to analyze the sacrifices of Nabi Ibrahim and Imam al-Hussein. That there's many similarities between the two, that when you begin to analyze the seerah of Ibrahim, you'll begin to understand the greatness of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Now, although there are similarities between the two, you find that there is no comparison between Ibrahim and Imam al-Hussein. For Ibrahim was the prophet. You find on the other side, Imam Imam al-Hussein is the warith of the Anbiya. As we say, Assalamu alayka ya warith Adam safwatullah. Assalamu alayka ya warith Nuh nabiyullah. Assalamu alayka ya warith Ibrahim khalilullah. That salam be upon you, O Hussein, the inheritor of all of these Anbiya. But what is it about the inheritance of Hussein? You find the inheritance of Hussein, as I mentioned on another night, is that Hussein, he saves the legacy of these prophets. That Hussein is the one who saved the legacy of Ibrahim. That if Ibrahim within the Quran is the embodiment of Tawheed, the one who stands up for Tawheed, as all mentioned through the incidents of Ibrahim, you find Hussein is the savior of Tawheed. But before I come in towards the sacrifices of Ibrahim and Imam al-Hussein, the question we need to ask ourselves is that why does an individual go through trial and tribulation within his life? You know, I know many of you, when you come upon this night, you come broken-hearted. You come with difficulties in your life, difficulties in your family, difficulty within the society you live in. And it happens within the lives of people that you go from door to door and you find a day it comes that every single door is closed for you. It's at that moment you look towards your Creator and you say, Ilahi man li ghayruk. That who do I have other than you? You see, this night before Ashura is a night of hope. It's a night of mercy. That as they say, Babul Hussein maftuhun, that the door of Hussein, it remains open. That if anyone wants to come upon this night, the door is open towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. But there's one condition. When you walk to the door of Hussein, walk in the way that Hur walked towards the door of Hussein. That walk upon this night with humility, walk with reflection, walk with understanding of the reality of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And you know, difficulties, they come in life. When they asked Ayatollah Bahjat that why does an individual face difficulty within his life, he gave 5 reasons. He says the first reason an individual faces difficulty is because Allah wants to guide that individual. That sometimes life is going smoothly and we have one hit come upon us, we have a trial come upon us. At that moment, the human being, he realizes that I need to change the direction of my life. That if things go too smooth for too long, you find you get focused upon the intricacies of everyday life. But this change, it guides a person. From the second level, you find a reason why a person goes through trials is because Allah wants to test the iman of that individual. That Allah wants to test the iman of that individual. At the end of the day, 18,000 individuals, they wrote letters towards Imam al-Hussein. That the Imam had 18,000 letters. And you find what? You find that each of these letters had multiple names upon it. So it was more individuals. But when the moment of imtihan came, when the sword of Ibn Ziyad was taken out, you began to see what level of iman individuals were on. You find that this is the second level. The third level and the third reason why a person can go through tests is to rectify his mistakes. That sometimes when we're doing wrongdoings, it takes a trial in our life to fix that. From the fourth level, the reason a person goes through tests is to save them from calamity. That sometimes you begin to think to myself that if I kept going down this road, I would find myself in a tough situation. So the hadith, they say that Allah will give a person sickness within his body to preserve his iman, his faith, his soul, because this leads to reflection. And the fifth level you find is what? You find is that Allah wants to elevate that individual. But when it comes towards the Anbiya, when it comes towards Sayyid al-Shuhada, what is the reality of the test of the Anbiya? You find when it comes to the Imam, when it comes towards each of them, their tests, they differ in the sense that one salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You find their tests, they differ in the sense that when the Anbiya they go, the reason they are tested is to protect their ummah, to save their nation. And you find Aba Abdullah is the one who would go through trials and who would go through sacrifices in the way Nabi Ibrahim went through sacrifices. But what is the reality of Ibrahim? When you look within the Holy Quran and you begin to see who Ibrahim was, you begin to realize what the reality of the warid of Ibrahim was. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I have one request, if we could set the mic at one level and leave it there. My humble request. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A little bit raised, please. A little bit raised, please. Thank you so much. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Then inshallah after that, so we don't interrupt the flow of the majlis. Jazakallah. Jazakallah. Ahsan. We'll leave it at this. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So you find that when you look within the Holy Quran, the first thing which Ibrahim he symbolizes, and when you begin to understand the realities of Ibrahim within the Quran, you'll begin to understand the realities of the warid of Ibrahim, Imam al-Hussein. That when you look within the Quran, Ibrahim is the one who broke the idols. That this is what Ibrahim was known for. The story of the Quran, it goes that when the people of the town of Ibrahim, once a year they would have a festival where they would go to the outskirts of the town. When they go towards the outskirts of the town, you find they invite Ibrahim to come towards this festival. But Ibrahim, he says, I'm feeling sickness. So Ibrahim, he doesn't go. But instead what Ibrahim, he does is that he goes towards the idol temple. When he goes towards the idol temple, he breaks all of the idols except for the biggest idol. At that moment, you find that the people of the town, they return. When they return, they go towards Ibrahim. They say that we heard that a youth by the name of Ibrahim was causing destruction. When they go towards Ibrahim, they say, Oh Ibrahim, are you the one who destroyed these idols? The Quran, it says, Ibrahim replies, قُلْ بَلْ فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ. It says, no, rather the biggest one did it. فَاسْأَلُوهُمْ إِن كَانُوا يَنْطِقُونَ. He says, go and ask the biggest one if the biggest one of them is able to speak. You know, at that moment, the Quran, it says that a reflection and a realization, it comes in towards them. When this realization, it comes, they begin to think about the logic of what Ibrahim said. You find Ibrahim is that individual who would break the physical idols. Imam al-Hussein is that individual who would not only break those idols, but he would break the idols of the heart and the spiritual idols within a person. You find an idol is anything which prevents one from reaching towards Allah. That arrogance is an idol. That selfishness is an idol. That being judgmental towards others is an idol. One salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If we could request the echo to be turned down, my apologies. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So you find that the Quran, when it speaks about Ibrahim, it describes him as the one who breaks the idols. But Aba Abdullah al-Hussein is that individual who would break the spiritual idols of an individual. That's why when you look, Imam al-Hussein, you find the title is given towards him, Safinatun Najat. An individual comes towards the sixth Imam. He says to the sixth Imam, is it true that within the Holy Quran, your grandfather said, is it true that your grandfather has a hadith where he says that the example of the Ahlul Bayt is like the Ark of Noor? The one who boards them will be saved and the one who turns away from them will be destroyed. The sixth Imam says this is true, that this is a narration of my grandfather. Then after that you find what? They say, is it true that your grandfather also said that Hussein is Safinatun? ark of salvation. So you find at that moment, the sixth Imam replies by saying that both of these narrations are true. وَلَكِنْ سَفِينَةَ جَدِّيَ الْحُسَيْنَ أَوْسَعْ وَأَسْرَى. But the ark of my grandfather Hussein is the one which moves the fastest, and the ark of my grandfather Hussein is the one which is the widest. You find Sayyid al-Shuhada is that individual, that whenever anyone is going through spiritual trials within their life, when they're going through difficulties, you find you have the example of Sayyid al-Shuhada. When you look at all of the Urafa, all of the mystics, you find what reality elevated them towards that level. All of them will say it was Hussein and the ziyarah of Hussein, that there was an individual. He went around to all of the Maraji of Qum and Najaf. He asked them that, is there one act that you did in your life which elevated you towards this status? You find that they all replied by saying that if there is anything that we did, it's that we recited Ziyaratul Ashura every single day within our life. You know, one of the students of Sayyid al-Qadi, and the status of Sayyid al-Qadi is a great status, Qadi Tabatabai. He sees Sayyid al-Qadi within his dreams. He says to him, is there any unfulfilled desire that you had, that you have this great status? He replies by saying, every day in my life I would recite Ziyaratul Ashura once. But the only unfulfilled desire I have is I wish I could have recited the Ziyarah twice every single day. You find Hussein is that individual who elevates man. And when you look towards the seerah of Nabi Ibrahim, you'll begin to understand the greatness of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Because both of these individuals, they were tested. What was the first test of Ibrahim? The first test of Ibrahim was the test of the wealth of Ibrahim. You find Ibrahim is called Khalilullah, the friend of Allah. Now there's two narrations as to why he's called Khalilullah. The first narration is of the 8th Imam from the book Uyun Akhbar al-Rida. You find the Imam says that the reason he's called Khalilullah is because, number one, that Ibrahim would never refuse a beggar. That whenever a beggar would come, Ibrahim would never refuse a beggar. And from the second level, you find it was his tawakkul and his trust upon Allah. If Ibrahim is Khalilullah because of generosity and tawakkul, you find Sayyid al-Shuhada is awla and higher when it comes towards this right. That what is the generosity of Sayyid al-Shuhada? If you want to understand the Imam, you find an individual comes towards the door of the Imam. He knocks upon the door. The Imam, he opens the door. He takes his hand out, he gives towards that individual. They say, Ya Hussein, Ya Sayyid al-Shuhada, Ya Aba Abdullah. That why didn't you show your face towards that man? You know what the Imam, he replies by saying? He replies by saying that that man was embarrassed to ask from me. So I didn't want to embarrass him by looking towards his face as well. That if I'm doing this act, I wanted it to do with sincerity. You know, it's stated on the 11th of Muharram, right? You find that the army of Umar bin Sa'ad, they would boast upon the wounds that they inflicted on the body of Sayyid al-Shuhada. When Imam Zainul Abidin, he saw the body of his father, he would say that there were so many wounds upon the body of my father that there was not even the spot of a ring where his body wasn't marked with wounds. You know, as they would talk towards each other, they would notice that there were some bruises upon the back of the Imam. The army of Umar bin Sa'ad, they began to say to each other that what are these bruises upon the back? These wounds, they're fresh, but we don't know these bruises. We didn't inflict them. They call Imam Zainul Abidin. You know what Imam Zainul Abidin says? He says, these are the bruises that in the middle of the night, my father, he would go and he would give food towards the fuqara of Medina, towards the masakeen and the poor individuals of Medina. This is Sayyid al-Shuhada. You know, oftentimes we don't hear about the life of Sayyid al-Shuhada before Karbala. If you want to understand who Sayyid al-Shuhada is, one day there was a servant. He was over there. He was sitting in a garden. He gives a piece of bread towards the the dog, and then he would take a piece of bread. He would give it towards this dog, and he would take a piece of bread. At that point, Sayyid al-Shuhada, he sees him. He says, "Oh man, what are you doing?" He says, "I was eating by myself. At that moment, I noticed this stray dog. When I noticed this stray dog, I felt sadness within my heart that I was eating, yet this animal, this creation of Allah wasn't eating. So what I do is I take one batch, I take one piece of bread, he takes one piece of bread." You know what the Imam he does? The Imam says, "Who are your owners?" His owners were a pair of Jewish individuals. He goes and he buys the servant. He says, "You're free in the way of Allah." But this isn't where the generosity of the Imam it stops. The Imam then he goes back towards the owners. He says, "Let me buy your garden." He buys the garden from them. He says, "The garden is yours as well." That you see the door of Hussein. When you ask from Sayyid al-Shuhada, the generosity of the Imam hasn't stopped. That's why the narrations they say, when you ask under the qubba of Sayyid al-Shuhada, that whenever your du'as aren't being accepted at other places, go towards Karbala. You find under the dome of Hussein, your du'as, they're accepted. So you find, I said, the first narration, why Ibrahim was the Khalil of Allah, is because he would never refuse a beggar and his tawakkul upon Allah. But the second narration, it states that one day Ibrahim is walking with his flock of sheep. As he's going with his sheep, he sees a young individual saying, "Subbuhun Quddusun Rabbul Malaikati war." Ibrahim, when he hears this tasbih of Allah, he becomes so enchanted by it. He says to the boy that recites this dhikr one more time. He says, "Oh Ibrahim, what are you going to give towards me?" Ibrahim says, "I'll give half of my flock of sheep." He says, "Very well." He says, "Subbuhun Quddusun Rabbul Malaikati war." Ibrahim, you find when you love someone, their dhikr, you could hear it all day and it still won't go old. That's why when you keep hearing the name of Hussein year after year, this isn't an affair of the mind and the tongue, it's an affair of the heart. When something's an affair of the heart, you find that that individual is one who rules over the hearts. And the one who rules over the hearts, you find the rule, it doesn't end. That other kings, they rule over the bodies, but Sayyid al-Shuhada rules over the hearts of an individual. You find Ibrahim, he hears that dhikr one more time, he still doesn't have happiness in his heart. He says, "Recite it for me one more time." He says, "Oh Ibrahim, you already gave away your first half of sheep. What are you going to give now?" He says, "I'll give the second half away as well." He says, "Subbuhun Quddusun Rabbul Malaikati war." Ibrahim says, "No, recite it one more time." He says, "You don't have anything left to give." Ibrahim says, "I'll spend half of my life being your servant." You find at that moment, that man replies, "Oh Ibrahim, I came here to taste your test, that how much did you love the dhikr of Allah. I didn't come here to make you my servant. Oh Ibrahim, for this love of the dhikr of Allah, I have given you the status. Allah has made you his Khalil, the one whom is his friend." You know, Ibrahim is Khalilullah, correct? And in the ziyarah, you say Muhammad is Habibullah. What is the difference between Ibrahim being the Khalil of Allah and Rasulullah being the Habib of Allah? You find both of them, they mean friend, but there is a difference in the style of friendship. Ibrahim is that friend whom he holds a greater attachment and affinity for the other friend, but Habibullah is that friend that Allah holds such a great affinity with Rasulullah, that upon the night of Mi'raj, when Allah takes Rasulullah towards the heavens, you find in the skies Ibrahim would stop and send salams upon Rasulullah. That Khalil and Habib is this, that upon the ascension of the Habib of Allah, the Khalil of Allah stands in the way and sends salams upon Rasulullah. This is that reality. You find Ibrahim is Khalilullah because he's willing to make this sacrifice of wealth, and this was the first test of Ibrahim. You find that what was the second test of Ibrahim? The second test of Ibrahim was with the life of Ibrahim. You find after Ibrahim, he preaches Tawheed towards the people. Nimrud, he says, will throw him within the fire. You know, the fire was to such an extent that they would use a catapult to throw Ibrahim in towards that fire. You find the narration, it says that as Ibrahim is upon the catapult, at that moment Jibreel descends upon Ibrahim. Jibreel says, "O Ibrahim, the Khalil of Allah, me and the Malaika are willing to help you at this moment." You know what Ibrahim says? He says that I need help, but not from you. The one who can help me is my Creator. I say upon the day of Ashura, the narrations they state, after the body of Imam al-Hussein was wounded, he stands alone in Karbala. At that moment, the angels, they descend upon Sayyid al-Shuhada. The narrations of Kamil al-Ziyarat, they state that Jibreel comes down towards the Imam. He says, "Oh Imam," he says, "Oh Master, Allah has already accepted what you've done. Whatever you've done, Allah is accepted." At this moment, the angels can come and destroy this army on the other side. You know what Sayyid al-Shuhada says? He says, "Oh Jibreel, I don't want that help. For through the spilling of my blood, the religion of Islam will be saved." You see, Ibrahim is the one who rejected the help of Jibreel. The Warith of Ibrahim did the same. And another narration from Kamil al-Ziyarat says that there were 4,000 angels that descended upon the day of Ashura. When Sayyid al-Shuhada rejected them, they said that we agree towards that, but we'll sit upon this spot that you are killed, and we'll mourn upon this spot, and we'll pray for the istighfar of those Zaireen who come towards this spot. You find this is that reality. So Ibrahim, he's thrown within the fire. And you know what dua Ibrahim makes when he's thrown within the fire? He says, "Ya Allahu, Ya Wahidu, Ya Ahadu, Ya Samadu, Ya Lam Yalid wa Lam Yulad, As'aluka bihaqqi Muhammadin wa Aliyin wa Fatimata wal Hasani wal Hussein, lama najaytani minan nar." He says, "Oh Allah, oh the one who is not divided, oh the self-sufficient, oh the one who doesn't beget nor is he begotten. I ask through the right of Muhammad and Ali and Fatima and Hassan and Hussein that you save me from this fire." You see, the reality of Sayyid al-Shuhada is that when the Khalil of Allah is thrown within the fire, the name of Hussein was taken in that dua for Ibrahim to seek the blessing of Allah at that moment. You see, even the du'as of the Imam upon the day of Ashura, all of these du'as are worthy of analysis. The Imam, he says to Allah, "Ya Allah, Anta Raja'i fi shiddati," that, "Oh Allah, you are my hopes in all difficulties." The look at Ibrahim. You know, tonight I didn't come to recite in length. I know it's the night of Musibah. I know you've come to cry for the Musibah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. But you find the third test of Ibrahim, which I'll mention, is that difficult test where a father goes and he sacrifices his son. You know, the Quran, it says, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ, that when Ismail reached an age where he could support his father, Ibrahim says towards him, قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ فَانْظُرْ مَاذَا تَرَى. He says towards Ismail that I saw in my dreams that I am slaughtering you. What is your opinion, my son? The Quran says, Ismail, he replies, قَالَ يَا أَبَتِي إِفْعَلْ مَا تُعْمَرْ, act in the way that you've been commanded to, my father. And then he says, سَتَجِدُنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ مِنَ الصَّابِرِينَ, that you'll find me from amongst the patient ones. That look at the steadfastness of Ismail. That Ismail, he says to his father, "Oh my father, you're going to kill me, you're going to slaughter me. But at that moment, make sure you sharpen the sword." For when the sword is sharpened, I know death is a difficult moment. And oh my father, make sure your clothes are tied back. I don't want my mother Hajra to see when the blood it comes upon your clothes. And oh my father, tie my hands to make sure my body it doesn't move. That you know Ismail is the one who had sabr upon hearing the news of death. I say the dialogue it says that before they reached Karbala, Imam al-Hussein he falls asleep, he sees a dream. After he wakes up from this dream, he begins to say Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. The Imam would repeat Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. You know Ali Akbar, he comes towards the Imam. He says, oh my father, why do you keep saying this verse? The Imam says, oh Akbar, when I fell asleep, I saw a dream that there was a group of people and death was coming from the other side and death overtook those people. I knew from this dream we are going towards our final moments. Now look at the difference between Ismail and Ali Akbar. Well, Ismail said towards his father that insha'Allah, by the will of God, you'll find me patient. You know what Ali Akbar says towards his father? He says towards his father, oh father, are we not upon haqq and the truth? The Imam says that we are upon the truth. Then Ali Akbar, he says, then it doesn't matter whether death comes towards us or we run towards death. You see, Ismail is the one who had patience at that moment. But Ali Akbar is the one who would suggest running towards death, that going towards it. This is that reality. And you know the Quran, it describes the incident that as Ismail and Ibrahim are going towards Mina, you know, on the first night, I mentioned the lines of Sheikh Ja'far Shushtari when he said that the majlis of Hussein is like the spot of Mina, the spot of sacrifice, that when you come here, you sacrifice your ego, you put everything in front of the Imam. You find when Ismail and Ibrahim are going over there, you find Shaitan, he comes the first time. Ibrahim rejects him. Shaitan goes towards Hajra. You find he says towards Hajra that your husband is doing something strange. He's taken your son and he has a sword within his hand. You find Hajra says, no, I don't believe you. Shaitan says, I saw it with my eyes. He came in the form of a person. Hajra says, why is he doing this? You find Shaitan, he says, because it is the command of Allah. At that moment, Hajra, she says, if it's the command of Allah, then what can I say at that moment? You know, the narrations, it says, I see tears falling from the eyes of individuals. You know, I'll come towards the musibah. You know, it's stated that Ibrahim, he goes, when he puts Ismail, the Quran, it says, the forehead of Ismail was upon the ground. Now look at the test of a father. The blindfold upon his eyes, he raises the sword towards the neck of Ismail. At that moment, Allah sends down that ram. You know, the Quran, it talks about this moment. It says, وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْهٍ عَظِيمٍ, that we sacrificed Ismail with that supreme sacrifice. You know, when Allama al-Majlisi, he offered the interpretation of this verse, he mentioned a narration. The narration, it says that when Ibrahim noticed that Ismail wasn't sacrificed, you find Ibrahim, he stands up and he says, oh Allah, I feel grief in my heart, because what status would I have reached if I was able to sacrifice my son? That this is the reality of these individuals, that they wanted closeness to Allah at such a level that Ibrahim, he had this desire to sacrifice his own son. You know, the narrations, they say that Jibreel comes down. He says, oh Ibrahim, who is greater towards you, yourself or the final prophet? He says, of course the final prophet is greater. Then he says, who is greater, the grandson of the final prophet, or your son son Ismail. Ibrahim says, of course the grandson of the final prophet is greater. At that moment, Jibreel, he says, oh Ibrahim, that Hussein, that grandson of Rasulullah will be slaughtered upon the plains of Karbala. You find Ibrahim, he begins to cry with tears. The narration, it says, Allah says that when you shed these tears, O Ibrahim, it's as if you're receiving the reward right now for slaughtering Ismail. You know, when the Quran, it mentions the supreme sacrifice, it mentions the sacrifice of Syed al-Shuhada. You know, there's a difference between Ibrahim and Ismail. If we could turn off the lights for musibah upon this night. For this night is a night of tears. I'll recite Masaib in depth upon this night. You know, there's a difference between Ibrahim and Ismail. That Ibrahim, you find, he faced these tests upon different days. First with his wealth, then with his life, then with his son. But Hussein is the one who faced all of those tests upon one day. You know, when you cry tonight, when you cry tomorrow, there's a way to cry. You know, the narrations, they state that the sixth Imam, there was a gathering over there where the dhikr of Sayyid al-Shuhada was mentioned. One of his companions by the name of Abu Basir, he was crying. The Imam goes up to him. He says to him, oh Abu Basir, why don't you cry for my grandfather Hussein? You know what Abu Basir, he does? He shows the handkerchief. He says, I am crying for your grandfather Hussein. He says, oh Abu Basir, this isn't the way that you cry. He says, oh my master, how should I cry for your Jad Hussein? You know what the Imam, he says? He says, cry in the way that my grandmother Fatima al-Zahra would cry for Hussein. That, you know, this night is Laylatul Ashura. It's stated within the narrations that the Imam, he divides this night into three portions. The first was for the ibadat of Allah. The second was for his family members. The third was for his companions. You know, the army of Umar bin Saad, they say that when we listen towards the tents of Hussein, it was as if there were bees moving from the recitation of the Quran, the sound and the humming we would hear from the Quran. That, you know, it's upon this night that Sayyid al-Shuhada, he walks into the plains of Karbala. He begins to survey the plains of Karbala and he begins to see where tomorrow this shahadat, this martyrdom will take place. You know, first the Imam, he looks towards the left side of the plains in front of the tent. He noticed that upon the left side there were valleys, there were trees, there were mountains. He knew that when you go against an army of 30,000 and they hid in these valleys, they would attack from all sides without it being seen. You know what the Imam, he does? He says that the area which will fight is that open field, that these are the children of Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is that Banu Hashim which was known for bravery. The Imam, as he was out looking towards the plains of Karbala, it stated that his companion Nafi' went with the Imam. The Imam, he looks at Nafi', he says, oh Nafi', tomorrow they're going to come for me. That if they were given the option, they would kill me right now. Oh Nafi', you're absolved of any responsibility towards me. Why don't you go and run in the middle of the night, and upon the day of judgment, I'll testify for you. You know what Nafi', he says? He says, oh my master, how can I leave you at this moment? You find Sayyid al-Shuhada, after that, they dig a trench, a khandak behind the tents. And this trench, it would be lit on fire on the day of Ashura. Why? Because the Imam didn't want that as he goes towards the battlefield, the tents of the women are raided while the Imam is alive. But I say, oh my master, a time will come upon Sham-e Ghariba, where those tents will be upon fire. Your Sakina will run from tents to tents. A point will come when Zainab upon her shoulders will lift your son Zainul Abidin out of... You see, this is the Shab-e Ashura. It's stated upon this night. The Imam, he gathers all of his companions. He says towards them that you're absolved of any responsibility towards me. Whoever wants to go can go. You find none of them leave. The Imam says, "Oh Abbas, take out the candle. Maybe they're embarrassed to see me." You find when Abbas, he takes out the candle and they light it again. All of those companions, they stood in front of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You know, Burair, he stands up. He says, "Oh my master, even if I'm killed and my body is cut to pieces and my body is burnt and those ashes are scattered and I'm brought back to life, and this happens 70 times, each time I would sacrifice myself for you, nonetheless doing it one time." You know, the Imam upon this night, he would look towards Medina. He would say, "Oh my grandfather Rasulullah, look at my companions." The Imam would look towards Najaf. He would say, "Oh my father Amir al-Mu'mineen, look at my companions." He'll look towards Baqi. He would say, "Oh my brother Hassan, look at my companions. You would call your companions to come, but they wouldn't come. I tell mine to leave, but they don't leave." You see, on this night, each of the tents, there was conversation happening, that each of the mothers would speak towards their children, that Zainab would say towards An and Muhammad, "Oh An and Muhammad, you are the grandchildren of Haydar al-Karrar. You are the grandchildren of Jafar al-Tayyar. Tomorrow I know you'll reach the Furat, but when you reach the Furat, make sure you don't drink from the Furat unless Sakina and Ali have drank from the Furat." You find that Layla would speak to Akbar. Rabab would be speaking to Ali Asghar. She would say, "Oh Asghar, I'm not from the household of Ahlul Bayt, oh Ali Asghar. I came from outside this house. Oh Asghar, tomorrow honor me on the day of judgment in front of your grandmother Fatima Zahra." But you know, it's stated upon this night, there was one lady who would sit in the tent by herself crying. That lady was Kulthum. You know, when the Imam, he sees his sister Kulthum, he begins to walk towards that tent. And you know why she was crying? She would say, "I don't have anyone to sacrifice for my brother Hussein." As the Imam begins to walk towards the tent, he sees that Aba Fadl Abbas, he says, "Oh my sister, tomorrow he says, "Oh my sister, tomorrow I'll be your sacrifice." You know, the companions, they would speak to each other, that Habib would say towards the companions, that as long as you're alive, make sure no arrow comes towards Hussein. Make sure you don't trouble Abbas. Make sure nothing happens towards Ali Akbar. You find at one point, history it says, that Sayyida Zainab, she says towards her brother, she says, "Oh my brother, have you tested these companions of yours?" You know, Habib, he hears this. He says, "Oh Hassab of Imam al-Hussein, the daughter of Ali wants to see your test." It's stated on this night, all of the companions, they come out, they take out their swords, they go in front of the tent of Zainab, they say, "Oh daughter of Ali, if you tell us to cut our heads, we'll cut our heads upon this moment." You see, this is that night of Ashura. This night it passes. When the time period of Fajr it comes, you find Ali Akbar, he goes, he gives that adhan. When he gives that call for prayer, everyone was reminded of the time period of Rasulullah, that how difficult is the musibah of Ali Akbar. You know, it's stated that Sayyid Mahdi Bahar al-Ulum, he was on the mimbar in Karbala as he was reciting the musibah of Ali Akbar. One of the khuddam, the servants of the haram, they said, "Ya Sayyid, anzil al-mimbar, anzil al-mimbar, get off the mimbar." Sayyid Mahdi Bahar al-Ulum, he says, "Why are you asking me this?" They said, "As you're reciting the musibah, blood has become to come from the dari of Hussein." You know, the ulama, they've stated, only recite the musibah of Ali Akbar on special occasions. For the Shia of Ali Muhammad, they can't handle the musibah of Ali Akbar. You know, it's stated that when Ibrahim, he put the knife over Ismail, a scratch of the knife went upon the neck of Ismail. At that moment, Hajra, when she hears about this, pain went into the heart of Hajra. But I say, oh Hajra, what about Layla on the day of Ashura? I say, oh Ibrahim, you had the blindfold upon your neck. Look at Hussein on the day of Ashura. Look at Hussein upon the day of Ashura. You know, there was a caravan. It leaves from Iran. It goes towards Karbala. They leave from the town of Mazandaran. The narrator is Abbas Mazandarani. He says we would go by foot towards Karbala. And may Allah grant you the opportunity to do the ziyarah of Hussein by foot. He says we reached there upon Thursday night, upon the Shab of Jum'ah. When we reached towards the Haram of Sayyid al-Shuhada, I was thinking to myself, whose musibah will I recite? I said to myself, whoever's musibah the book it opens towards, I'll recite their musibah. You know what he says? He says, I open to the musibah of Ali Akbar. Upon Thursday night in the shrine of Hussein, I recited the musibah of Ali Akbar. He says, everyone began to cry in such a way like I've never heard before. He says, that night when I went to sleep, I saw Sayyid al-Shuhada within my dream. He said towards me, Abbas Mazandarani, the reason I've come to you is three. The first reason is that anyone who does my ziyarah, I visit them. The second reason is that when you go back towards Mazandaran, give my salams towards one of my Shia. I say, oh my master, the entire world sends their salams towards you. Who is this Shia that you send your salams towards? The Imam, he says, oh Abbas, wherever there is a majlis in my name, there's a gathering in my name, the Shia, he fixes the shoes at that majlis. He makes sure the shoes are aligned. Send my salams towards that Shia. You know what the Imam, he then says to Abbas Mazandarani? He says towards him, the third reason why I've come is that never recite the musibah of Ali Akbar in my shrine upon a Thursday night. He says, oh my master, did I recite anything wrong? He says, it's not that you recited anything wrong. On Thursday night, my mother Fatima, she comes towards my shrine. She can handle anyone's musibah, but she can't handle the musibah of Ali Akbar. She falls unconscious. She says towards me, oh Hussein, how did you lift the body of Akbar? You know, they said to Imam as-Sadiq, they asked him that, is there any happiness within this world? The Imam, he says, in this dunya, happiness is temporary, but there is one happiness, for a father to see his son reach the age of youth. After that, they say to the Imam, what is the biggest difficulty? He replies by saying, for that same father to lift the body of that son. I say, Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah, that what is the musibah of Ali al-Akbar? You know, it's stated that after the women were taken from Kufa to Sham, you find the head of Akbar would be upon a spear. One of the Christian women of Kufa, when they saw the head of Akbar, they said one line in front of Layla. You want to hear that line? That line was that may the mother of this child have died before seeing such a day. You know what Layla says? She says, Ana, that I am the mother of this child. Why did you say this line? They say that we as Christians, we can't handle the beauty of this child, of this youth. Then how did the mother handle this? You find this is the musibah of Ali Akbar upon the day of Ashura. You find Akbar, he recites that adhan for the time period of Fajr. First the companions, they go. After that, the turn of Ahlul Bayt, it comes. You know, the narrations, they differ. Some of them say that Akbar was the first of Banu Hashim. Other narrations say he was from amongst the last of Banu Hashim. But you find when Akbar, he comes towards his father, he comes to ask for permission. The Imam gives him permission. But you know what the Imam says to Akbar? He says, "Oh Akbar, why don't you go ask permission from your mother first?" You find Akbar, he goes towards Layla. When he goes towards Layla, you know who understands the musibah of Akbar? That mother understands that musibah, that when her son doesn't come home, she stands at the door waiting for her son. You find Akbar is going to go ask Layla for permission to die upon the battlefield. Akbar, he says, "Oh my mother Layla, do I have permission to go?" Layla says, "Oh Akbar, you are my heart, oh Akbar. Oh Akbar, what will your mother do after you?" You know the Maqtal, it says, Akbar replies with one line. He says, "Oh my mother, if you tell Ali Akbar won't move towards the Maqtal. But oh my mother, answer this one question. If upon the day of judgment, my grandmother Zahra said towards you that Hussein was killed, but you stopped Ali Akbar, what would you say?" What would you say towards my grandmother Zahra? You find Layla gives permission towards Akbar. You find Akbar, he comes back towards the Imam. He says that my mother has given me permission. The Imam says, "Now go towards that mother who raised you. Go towards Sayyida Zainab." You know, it's stated when Akbar was born, Imam al-Hussein, he takes Ali Akbar towards the house of Zainab. When Zainab sees Ali Akbar, she says, "Oh my brother, it's a custom when a child is born, you gift the sister something. Is there anything you have for me?" You know what the Imam did? He took Ali Akbar, he placed him within the arms of Zainab. He says, "Zainab, Akbar is yours. From now on, you raise Zainab." You know, it's stated that Zainab is the one who raised Ali Akbar. Akbar goes towards Sayyida Zainab. She gives Akbar permission. You know, when Akbar is leaving the tents, right? Hamid bin Muslim, he says, "I would look at the tent of the women as Akbar would leave. I would see the curtain would go up, the curtain would go down, it would go up, it would go down." You know what would happen? Every time Akbar would leave, one of the women would bring Akbar back. That Kulthum would say, "I want to see you, O Akbar." Zainab would say, "I want to see you, O Akbar." Layla would bring Akbar back. Hamid bin Muslim, he says, "As I was watching this, I saw that somebody grabbed Akbar by the shirt. I began to think to myself, if it was somebody older, they would grab by the shoulder. Who is it grabbing the shirt of Ali Akbar?" As I looked closer, I saw a 3.5-year-old girl. It was Sakina. You know what she was saying? She was saying, "Oh my brother Akbar, irham ghurbatana, la taqat lana ala firakik." She says, "Oh my brother Akbar, have mercy upon our ghurbat. We don't have any strength upon your departure, O Ali Akbar." You find the Imam, he pulls out Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar, he goes for one more farewell. Which farewell is this? He goes towards the tent where his brother, he laid sick within the tent. When he goes to the tent of Imam Zainul Abidin, the narration, it says, he begins to kiss the arm of the Imam. He starts from the hand, he begins to kiss up towards the shoulder. Imam Zainul Abidin, he wakes up. He says, "Oh my brother Akbar, why are you kissing me in this way?" Akbar says, "I've come to bid my final farewells towards you." Imam Zainul Abidin says, "Oh Akbar, go defend our father. For if I had the strength, I would go with you as well, oh Akbar." You find Akbar, he goes. When he comes back towards the Imam says, "Oh Akbar, there's one request your father has, that when you reach the age of youth, it was your Aunt Zainab who tied the turban upon your head. Your father wanted to tie the turban upon that day, but when your Aunt Zainab moves forward, your father doesn't say anything. The Imam says, upon this day, let me tie that turban upon your head. Look towards me. You know how the Imam would tie the turban of Ali Akbar? He would go around the head. He would say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. He would go around the head. He would say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. The Imam, he gives Akbar permission. Akbar, he gets upon the horse. When he gets upon the horse, he begins to go towards the Maqtal. As he's going towards the Maqtal, he hears footsteps behind him. When Ali Akbar, he turns around, what does he see? He sees his father with his hand upon his back. Akbar says, oh my father, you already gave me permission. The Imam says, oh Akbar, if you had any children, you would know the pain. Oh Akbar, if you had any children, you would know the pain of a father. You find the Imam, he says, oh Akbar, as you fight, keep turning around so your father can see your face, oh Ali Akbar. Akbar, he begins to go towards the Maqtal. The Imam says, Allahumma ishhad ala ha'ula'i al-qawm qad baraza ilayhim ghulamun ashba'un nas khalkan wa khulkan wa mantiqan bi rasulik. The Imam says, oh Allah, bear witness that I'm sending the closest one towards Rasulullah in appearance and character and the way of speech. You find Akbar, he would fight upon the plains. As he was fighting upon the plains, when Akbar would kill someone, the Imam would smile. When difficulty would fall upon Akbar, you find the Imam would have pain upon his face. The narration, it says that Layla at the door of the tents, she would see the face of the Imam. She would watch the reaction of the Imam. A point comes when they surround Ali Akbar. There was worry upon the face of the Imam. Layla goes towards Imam al-Hussein. She says, oh my master, is our son Ali Akbar in difficulties? The Imam says, oh Layla, the dua of a mother for her child is accepted. Go and pray for your son Ali Akbar. The narration, it says that Layla goes back towards the tent. Layla, she raises her hand. You know the dua of Layla? Listen towards the dua of Layla. Layla, she says, Ilahi bi sabri abi Abdullah, Ilahi bi atashi abi Abdullah, Ilahi bi ghurbati abi Abdullah. She says, oh Allah, to the right of the patience of Hussein. Oh Allah, to the right of the sabr of Hussein. Oh Allah, to the right of the thirst of Hussein. Oh Allah, to the right of the ghurbat of Hussein. She raises her hands. She says those lines, Ya Radha Yusuf ila Yaqub wa Ismail ila Hajra urdud alayya waladi Ali. She says, oh the one who returned Yusuf to Yaqub and Ismail to Hajra, return my son Ali. You find Ali Akbar, he comes back towards the tent. When he comes back towards the tent, you find he goes towards his father. He says this line. You know, it's stated the Imam, he would wait for Ali Akbar to ask him for something, because it was Zainab who raised Ali Akbar. The Imam would wait that a day would come that Akbar, my son, would ask me. But you know what Akbar, he says to his father? He says, Al-atashu qad qatalani. He says, oh my father, the thirst is killing me. The Imam says, oh Akbar, soon your grandfather Rasulullah will give you from the pool of Kauthar. He says, oh Akbar, put your tongue within my mouth. Akbar puts his tongue within the mouth of the Imam. Akbar, he cries out, oh my father, your mouth is drier than mine. You find Akbar, he goes back towards the Maqtal. Akbar, he begins to fight. He begins to fight. fight. The narration, it says that Akbar, he kills 120 individuals until a person, he comes towards Akbar. When he comes towards Akbar, he throws a spear at the back of Ali Akbar. From the back of Akbar, it comes out from the chest of Ali Akbar. You find another individual comes, he hits Akbar upon the head with the sword. Darabahu ala rasihi, he hits him on the head with the sword. You know what it states? It says the blood from the head of Akbar, it goes upon the horse of Akbar. The horse of Akbar, he begins to run towards the other army of Umar bin Saad. At that moment, they begin to attack Akbar from all sides. فَقَطَعُوهُ إِرْبًا إِرْبًا. That from all sides, Akbar is surrounded until Akbar, he falls upon the ground. He falls upon the ground. He says, Aba Abdullah ya Abata, alayka minni salam. You find Akbar, he sends his salams upon his father. You find from the 10th Imam al-Hussein, the narrations, they differ. Some narrations, they say that the Imam upon his elbows would go towards the body of Ali Akbar. But you know what the other narrations, they state? They say that the Imam, he gets upon his horse. Instead of going towards Ali Akbar, he begins to go from to the opposite direction. Some of the maqatil, they say, فَسَقَطَ مِنْ فَرْسِهِ مِنْ فَرَسِهِ, that he falls off from his horse. After that he says, Oh Akbar, the light of my eyes has been taken. Ud'uni ya bunayya, call me, O Ali Akbar, I can't see where I'm going. You find the Imam, he goes towards the body of Ali Akbar. When he sees the body of Akbar, Akbar puts one arm around the neck of the Imam. The Imam says, Oh Akbar, why don't you greet me with both arms? It's as if Akbar was hiding something. But you find Akbar, he removes the hand. The Imam sees the spear in the chest of Akbar. You know what the riwayat, it says? Listen to the line and cry. It says, وَضَعَ خَدَّهُ عَلَى خَدِّهِ. The Imam, he puts his cheek on the cheek of Ali Akbar. He says, عَلَى الدُّنْيَا بَعْدَكَ الْعَفَا. Oh Akbar, after you made this world become dust. Listen to the final lines. The Imam, he looks at Ali Akbar. He puts one hand on the chest of Akbar, one hand on the spear. He begins to pull the arrow. As he pulls the arrow, he looks towards Najaf. He says, Oh my father, lifting the door of Khaybar was easy. Look at you. Look at your Hussein taking the arrow from the chest of Ali Akbar. It stated the legs of Akbar would move the moment the arrow would come out. The Imam, he would try to pick the body of Akbar. Some ulama, they say that 30 times the Imam, he left the body. 30 times he'd lift the body, would fall down. He brings the body of Akbar back towards the tent. Sayyida Zainab, she sees the body of Akbar. She says, Wa Akbar, wa ala la'natullah ala al-qawm al-dhalimin. Ya Allah, we ask through the rights of Ali Akbar, we ask through the rights of Syed al-Shuhada, that wherever the followers of Ahlul Bayt are in difficulty, help them. Wherever they have any specific hajat granted towards them. There was a lady from our community that she went through a surgery and she's in need of du'as. That upon this night, when we ask through the right of Syed al-Shuhada, which Syed al-Shuhada? You know, this is that Sayyid al-Shuhada. When he would take the arrow from the chest of Ali Akbar. You know, Ibrahim had a blindfold upon his eyes when he took. But all of the Anbiya, they would marvel at the sabr of Hussein upon that day. We ask through the right of Hussein for the intercession of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad to be raised with Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And we pray for the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time, Matam Hussein.
Yeah, Syed. Ladies and gentlemen, just a few quick announcements. One of the main announcements for tonight is all of these programs happen with your help. We would really appreciate if you guys can donate towards the Muharram Fund. We have majalises in the future too. We have Maulanas coming almost every weekend from now until the 8th of Rabiul Awal. Inshallah, we will put out a whole list pretty soon, and we would really appreciate if you guys can help us out with this. Another important announcement is for tomorrow. The program over here will start with Amal-e Ashura, which will be at 11 a.m. Zohran is at around 1:15, and the Majlis of Pursa will start right after Zohran. Immediately after Zohran, inshallah, we will have Fakha Shikni, we'll have lunch around 3:30 over here. There's a ladies only Majlis at 5:30, and then we will have Shami Ghariba right after Namaz Maghriban. We don't have separate Urdu and English majlises tomorrow. We will have both the Maulanas go up on the member one after the other. So please do note that, and please come for both these majlises, one after Zuhr and one after Maghriban. I think in the interest of time, we will do the Noha after the Urdu majlis, because we're already running a little bit behind. I would like to once again thank all of you who've been coming over here all these days and contributing towards us and blessing us with your presence, and a special thank to Syed Bilal. Inshallah, the majalises with Syed Bilal will continue up until Saturday night. Please join us for that. Mutawajjih ziyarat.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله خاتم النبيين. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى ناصح الأمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء. السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء. السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس أنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض توز. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك ودهورك وجعلنا من أوانك وأنصارك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.